Welcome to Passionaire-magazine, the podcast where we talk about business, tech, food and travel, fashion, health and fitness, the arts and culture, where we want you to live your passion. Passionaire-magazine, the podcast. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for Passionaire Magazine, the podcast. I'm really excited to introduce you to my guest today. I will be spending time with Jean Watson, and we are in for a treat. So let's go on and get started. Hello, Jean. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Dr. Angela. It's great to be here.
I am really excited about talking to you because you are a woman after my own heart. You know, it's a little bit of music, it's a little bit of author, it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and it is just totally who you are. And I love that. Being able to express yourself with all of the gifts and talents that you have been given. But I want to start at a very simple place because there may be some folks out there that are unfamiliar with you, don't quite remember if they remember. So let's start with, tell us about Jean Watson. What makes you you?
What makes me me? Wow, what a great question. Well, I grew up in a musical family, and so music was a big part of my upbringing, and I saw myself wanting to be a professional musician. That's what I wanted to be when I was growing up. And I also had a passion for Ireland, which really didn't make sense. I would look at pictures of Ireland as a child and just think, I don't know why, but I feel like I need to go there someday. And so those two elements of my life that began in childhood ended up becoming a big part of my life in adulthood after I pursued music for classical training as a violinist. But later in life, I used music and eventually my speaking, my story, and my writing to be things that would share faith. So now I consider myself, primarily a musician. I write music. I use music to share the love of God and my faith. But as the years have gone on, writing and speaking have become bigger parts of my ministry and how God uses me.
And I love that you were willing to trust God enough to just go on the journey, right? To say, I know that I will end up where I'm supposed to be, as opposed to forcing it to go left or right, that you were wise enough to just walk in that. I think that comes with knowing ourselves enough to know, yeah, this feels right. I'm going to do this or that. I love that you were able to do that. Now, my next question for you is, when you were growing up, did you think that this was going to be where you were? Like, was it in your mind's eye, yep, people are going to know my name around the world? Or did that happen out of all of the choices that you've made along the way?
I think it's a combination. At the time as a child, my vision for myself was very narrow. It was all about classical music. That was what I was trained in. That was my gifting. And that's all I could see in the moment. But in the end, my dreams for myself were smaller, I think, than what God had for me. And so, I made some not so great choices with my life. I went to music school, got married, had 4 children. And along the way, somehow I sort of lost my passion for music and also my faith. I just made some choices probably weren't best. And that was so interesting because it was some of those negative choices that I made that became part of my story. And it wasn't like, oh, now I've screwed up my life. Now there's no redeeming it. But when I came to that place later in life where things were falling apart, where I'm now a divorced woman trying to raise 4 children on food stamps and just really struggling to survive financially and emotionally. And, at that low point, going back to God and saying, you know what, I think I screwed it up. Can I have a do-over? Because this is not how it was supposed to go. And, and the Lord did give me a do-over. And what's so interesting is all those things that I felt like were mistakes and losses became the very tools that I could use later to reach men and women, and particularly women who've struggled with failure or trauma or abuse. and feel like in their brokenness, they can never fulfill their destiny. And I could go in there and say, no, look, it's the brokenness that will be the pathway to your destiny. And so like even the mistakes became part of the journey, which I think is just so encouraging, because there's so many people that feel like, they may have screwed up their lives, but there's never a point where it's too late for that do-over moment. And so that's very much part of my message.
I love that. I love that. I remember the first time I heard someone say, allow your mess to be a part of the message. And I thought that that was so spot on, because many times people learn from someone else's mistake. I mean, not everyone, but a lot of people do. They hear the story and go, oh, wow, perhaps I didn't do that exact same thing, but I did something similar, and that could have been me. And they're able to take away from some of your successes what they can do in their own lives. So I love that you're able to help people that way and assist them to get through some of their messes as well. Now that you are, fast forward, now you are someone who is successful in your endeavors, and you are helping people on a major platform. And I love that you're able to do that. But is there one piece of advice that you wish you would have had when you were a younger person that would have helped you get through and become the person that you are today, perhaps a little sooner or differently?
Oh, goodness. I would say it all has to do with focus, because we're going to go the direction that we're focused on. And so I think, if I had, as a younger person, just, kept my focus bigger rather than on my feelings at the moment or on the next decision that I have to make, having a compass in my life, like, what is my why? Why am I doing what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Where do I see myself, or where do I want to see myself in 10 years? And being able to look up from the next step, the next day, the next moment, to further down the road, because again, wherever we're focused on, that's where we're going to go. And so, I would have loved to have somebody say, hey, what is your why? Where do you want to be in 10 years? And I think I would have gotten there faster.
Absolutely. And I think that that is something that today we realized that we needed a little, we still needed the pep talks that we received. And thank you to all the people that gave them to us. But we needed like that little extra something. There was a little something missing. And now we're able to insert that missing piece. And now we're sharing it with the next generation. And I think they're picking up on what we're sharing. So I have to agree with you there. Now, speaking of people giving us pep talks and helping to encourage us and keep us going, is there any one person, or perhaps you might have two, that have really helped you along your life's journey, that has been that cheerleader for you, or that person that's given you perhaps some tough love that you needed in that moment to help keep you going? I shouldn't assume that everyone is just rah rah, because sometimes we need a little rough, to kind of say, let's keep going. Have there been those people in your life?
Absolutely. One that I'm thinking of is not a personal friend. It's a musical, it's a recording artist named Margaret Becker, who's one of the pioneers in the Christian music industry. And I went to see her at a conference probably 20 years ago. And she really challenged me with that question that I mentioned earlier, which is, what is your why? Why are you doing what you're doing? And, it really doesn't matter so much what we do as it is why we're doing it, that motivation. And she just challenged me to think about that deeply. What do I want to do with my life? What does God want to do with my life? And even to write down that vision. And because in the Christian music industry, there's so much competition. In the music industry, there's so much competition. And now with social media, we're constantly wanting to look at other people's lives and thinking, well, if I just do what that person's doing, I'll be successful. And, so Margaret's words just really were an anchor to my soul. I was like, no, you cannot look around. You're just going to get discouraged. You're going to be jealous. You're going to look down on yourself. You're going to think you're not enough. You're not good enough. But if you have that inner compass, it's like, no, this is what I want to do with my life. put those blinders on, then it'll really, really help you be more effective as a person. And then my other person would be my husband, who is my greatest cheerleader. And he knows that vision for my life that I know. In fact, he says that he's more called to my ministry than I am. And so, at those moments where I don't believe in myself, which as an artist happens all the time, we get very critical of ourselves. And, but I've got him next to me every day saying, no, I see the beauty in what you're doing. I know your heart. I know where you're headed, and just keep going and shut out those voices. And so, I think all of us need that encourager that believes in us really more than we believe in ourselves, because, but especially as artists, we're very insecure. Artists are desperately insecure. So we need, so find your encourager. That's what I'd say. Like, find that person who's in your corner. And when you feel self-doubt, give them a call.
And you said something that I think is really important there, and that is, of the majority of artists that I have spoken with, be it that they are into like the arts and that they paint or sculpt, or you create music, however your form of music is presented, singing or instrument and whatever. I find that there is something genuinely different and special about that type of personality. There is a sensitivity there that I think that allows you to be exactly who you are, because you need that sensitivity in order to create whatever it is that you're sending out to us, right? And I tell you, that is a piece of advice that everyone says. You have to have the right people in your corner. It is so vital to us, and I think that's true, and especially for people that are creative in how they present their talent or gift to the world. So I think you just gave someone a nugget of information there, and be careful of who you surround yourself with, or who is at your table, so to speak. I love it. Now,
Absolutely.
as an organization gets bigger, be it that we are talking ministry in a traditional sense, if we are talking music, if we're talking your writings and all of that, as the organization gets bigger, many times you can lose track of that why, of the passion that you had initially. What is one thing that you try to do to make sure that you don't lose your passion for what you bring to the world?
Great question. I would say iron sharpens iron. And, that goes along with the last question as well. It's like, I have to be careful to keep myself surrounded with voices that are not only encouraging, but also holding me accountable and holding my feet to the fire, because especially if I'm leading an organization, it can be easy for me to become lazy or lose my focus. And so I need to have people that are speaking into my life saying, hey, I think you're off a little bit here, or have you thought about this, or how are you feeling today? That iron sharpens iron. And these are people that I really trust and look to for wisdom. And, like you said earlier, tell me the hard things. Do I need, a little smack in the face today? What is it that I need, And then the other thing is, making sure that I'm taking care of myself, filling myself up emotionally, spiritually, taking care of myself physically, staying in that place of wholeness, tending to my health and my wholeness. And that requires some discipline. Like, every day there are going to be things I need to do as a person. I do a little exercise every day, physical. I do something, to really stay in tune with God. I'm going to spend the first part of my day in prayer and reading the Bible or inspirational books. And then I'm also going to be tending to my emotional health and making sure I feel that permission to have fun and do something that is just purely restorative, which for me, I'm a type A personality. Go, 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 go. And so that's got to be scheduled in. It's like, okay, I now have permission to have fun, do something fun, because we need that to be healthy human beings. So that's what I do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I had to kind of laugh there because I remember when COVID first started, and I went to my mother's house and I said, I'm going to spend time with you. And she's like, okay. And I'm working. And I said, oh, yeah, by the way, Mom, I'm taking this room and I'm, converting it to my own space. And she's like, okay,
Okay.
sure. Right. And so I'm working and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And she says, do you do this every day? And I said, I do. And she's like, wow, that is a lot of work. Like you're always busy. And I think that there are certain, and especially like you said, type A personalities, we're constantly, okay, start, stop, do, move, go.
Right.
It's something constantly that we are bringing up. But I think that's that creative part of us. It's the putting our best forward, and we're always looking at ways, how can we refine, or how can we present that best piece of what we have. So hats off to you. I'm your sister in that.
Yeah.
It is constantly going. And, I applaud every other woman in particular that knows that that's how she is, but she's able to um, do it authentically and do it to a point where she remembers, like you said, pencil in fun,
Right.
and it's
Right.
like, do you have to do that? It's like, absolutely, because I'm going to make
Yes.
sure for the next 2 hours, phones down, no TV, whatever it is, it's just going to be fun, fun, fun. Let's laugh, giggle, and just kind of be silly. Because when it's time to work, I'm 100% about the work. So I definitely understand what you mean there. Love it. Love it. See, I love it when you're able to find someone who definitely clicks with you. Now, my
Understands.
my last question for you is, when it comes to empowering women, and I know that that means different things to different people, but what I mean is just keeping women uplifted, keeping them in good spirits by the actions that we do. How do you believe that you empower women or keep women kind of in that positive spotlight?
Right. I've kind of found a niche doing women's conferences,
Hmm.
and I didn't ever picture myself doing that. I was always a performer, a musician, but during my concerts, I always found myself speaking, and so speaking evolved into conferences, and I found that the thing that women needed most is something I mentioned earlier. They needed affirmation in their brokenness, because we all have a place of brokenness in our lives, and so often women will carry that, and it will paralyze them instead of empowering them. And so, I feel like the women's conferences are a place where I can really get down and dirty, share the dirt of my own life, and say, this is where I've come from, and I didn't have to stay there. This is, how God turned my life around, and
Yeah.
giving them inspiration to not live in shame with their brokenness, but embrace it and say, you know what, God uses broken people. And
Mm,
if I'm feeling broken, or like coming from a past of trauma, that can become a positive thing in my life. And so the
yeah.
conferences are huge. And also, I do a lot of ministry in women's prisons. And, I love to go to those places. I
Mm,
love to go to those places where there's so much hopelessness, so
yeah.
much brokenness, and just speak life into those people's hearts and look into their eyes. I was in a women's prison in England once where I couldn't touch them. I was not allowed to touch. So the only way I could touch those ladies was through my eyes. And
Oh, wow.
they were just like fish in a fish bowl, and just like giving them that few seconds of eye contact was
Yeah.
love. It was like, I see you, I notice you, you're
Yes.
important, you're valuable to me
Mhm.
and to God. And oh my goodness. And I
Yeah.
can't take too much of your time, but I've even was in the red light district in Manchester, England, speaking to prostitutes,
Yeah.
touching them, looking into their eyes, telling them what God was saying to them, that they're loved, they're noticed, they are beautiful. They're beautiful. And so
Yeah.
that like just fills my heart with so much joy to be able to speak value into women who've had that stripped from them. So
Yeah.
that's what I'll do. Like, I take any opportunity to speak into women's lives.
That is a beautiful moment. It's Jesus and the woman at the well.
Exactly.
It's like I see you. I know others see all of the other things, right? All of the husbands and all the stuff, but I see you. Oh, that is so beautiful. And yeah, I'm sure that those women will remember that moment because it does change your life when someone sees you for who you are authentically. I love it. I love it. Well, on that note, Jean, I have to say thank you so much for spending some time with me here on Passionaire Magazine, the podcast. I appreciate you being here and sharing your story with my listeners. But before I let you go, I know someone wants to reach out to you. I know they're going to want to spend some time with you, invite you potentially to their next event. What is the best way for folks to get in contact with you?
Well, I have a website, which is jeanwatson.com, and you can hear music, listen to some of my podcasts speaking, and contact me through the website. I'm also on Facebook, Jean Watson Music, Instagram, Jean Watson Music. You put in Jean Watson Music and you'll find me, and I would love to connect with you.
I love it. Thank you again for being a guest today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to Passionaire Magazine, the podcast.